So I had a load of students come and see me this week, and one of the things, they were all struggling consistently to strike their irons and woods off the ground. And the main reason for this is there's something that nobody seemed to have told them about hitting the irons and the woods, and this was costing them. Some were topping it on the ground, some were thinning it, some were really struggling with direction and distance. But once they understood this and the concept, everything changed. I want to share with you what this is, because you could be trying so many different things to try and improve the consistency of your irons and your woods, and nothing's working because you don't understand this, okay, this concept. So I'm going to go into that in this video. If you're new to the channel and this is one of your first lessons of mine, please consider subscribing. I release videos just like this one every single week to try and help you improve your game. Plus, you never have to remember a thing, I'll put a free downloadable practice guide in the description box below. So when you're hitting your woods or your irons off the ground, you've got to remember that it's very, very different, a different type of strike needed for that than it is maybe if you're off a tee. You need to avoid hitting any ground behind the golf ball, okay? Now to do that, I want you to imagine this. We're swinging the club like this, okay? Now to hit a ball first, we need to make sure that we hit it before the club gets to its longest point, its maximum radius in the circle. Because its maximum radius in the circle here is the point where the club is going to land. It's going to land on the ground. So we want to kind of strike the ball before that club lands on the ground. Now the landing point, just for reference, is directly under your lead armpit here. This is where your lead arm and club form a straight line. This is where you might hit a driver, okay? But with any club off the ground, when you want to strike the ball, you want to strike it here much, much earlier before the club gets to its maximum radius, because you don't want the club grounding out early, okay? But this has its problems, and this is what's causing a few issues with a few golfers. So kind of look at this. So my students absolutely love this visual, because this is ultimately your golf swing. It swings on a beautiful arc. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to go straight back and straight through. There's no such thing. Your golf club is always working on an arc, right? Now, when the club gets to the center of this arc, this is the landing point of your golf club, okay? Now we said, look, that landing point is directly opposite your lead heel, and this is roughly where you might have driver. But we said, when you're hitting your irons and your woods, you don't want the ball anywhere near that landing point. You want to hit the ball further back, okay? So this is your landing point here, but we want our ball to be over here. But what do you notice? If that's the case, and you're making a golf swing, and that golf club is coming in here, we're striking that ball, look, on the way down, so we don't land here, we hit the ball on the way down, the club continues working on the arc and then lands right in the center of that circle, okay? Now the problem is, this is where most people kinesthetically and visually get really, really confused, and it's stopping them from striking it. What most people aren't aware of is that where's the club actually heading at the moment it strikes that ball? It's to the right. So before the club strikes that ball, that club is heading to the right of target. It only then comes round the corner when it finally hits the ground here after that golf ball. And this can be really, really, in a sense of feeling wise, can be really confusing. Let me show you. So what I've done here is I've just set the ball up at where I would have a driver, which is the landing point of the club, the landing point being where your lead arm and club line up just under your lead armpit, and the club is at its maximum radius. This is the point at which the club is going to hit the ground. Now we said with your woods and your irons, you do not want a ball anywhere near this. Why? Because you want to make sure you avoid all of the ground. So the more you move the ball back in your stance, the more chance you've got of striking that ball and avoiding all ground behind it. And this is really, really important. But I said, this is where some of the problems lie. So let me explain. As we move the ball, and I'm going to exaggerate this just for the purpose of this exercise. As you move the ball further and further back in your stance here, okay, this is your landing point of the club. But if I move the ball way back in my stance, okay, what's happening to the club now? It's already tracking on an arc this way, okay, inside, yeah? Now, I want you to imagine this. The golf swing is a circle that works around here, it works back around, and then the club is heading to the right-hand side, and then it starts to work back towards the target, and then what does it do? It works back around here. This is the circle, right? This is the swing circle, okay? But if you're catching the ball, if this is the center of the circle right here, if this is the center of the circle, but you're going to catch the ball back in your stance here, where's the club actually heading? where's it heading? So if I move the ball back in my stance and I catch that ball before the club starts to track back around to the center of the circle, that club is heading where? Out to the right-hand side. And this is the feeling that most people aren't, or they don't realize they should be aware of, okay? Which is this. The natural geometry of a ball hit off the ground should probably create a shot that sets off to the right of target and draws back to the left. I'll show you how to draw it back in a second. But most people aren't trying to do that. Most people are trying to hit a dead straight shot, and it goes against the natural geometry of your golf swing. You see, the only way I could hit that ball dead straight is right at the center of this arc. But if I hit it at the center of the arc, that is the landing point of the golf club. I don't want it anywhere near that, because that landing point is probably going to catch it far. I want you to strike the ball first, so we need to move the ball back in the arc, which means that you strike the ball as the club is heading out there. Okay, so here's a great visual for you, and here's how I'd like to practice on a golf course. So it's going to start with setup. If I move that ball back in my stance, okay, and I put my handle forward as it should be here, so it's angled there, that face is aiming to my right hand side. So what I'm going to do is, if I didn't change anything there and I swung, that ball as it strikes would probably head out to the right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close the club face so it's just aiming a fraction right at target, then I grip it. Now what this will mean is this: if I just put a beautiful simple circle on this swing, that should see a ball that flies, sets off slightly to the right and then draws back to the center. Let's have a look at this in action. There we go. So look at this here. My circle, which is this bit here, 1, is absolutely perfect, right? 0, and it's created a perfect shape. My club path, which is a positive number, means it's heading where? To the right hand side. So I've caught the ball earlier on the arc. Because I close the face, this is the club face here, look, -5, close the face, I've created this perfect draw. Most of the players I'm coaching, unfortunately, they don't do that. What tends to happen is this: they're not comfortable with catching the ball early. They're desperately trying to hit it straight. And then, like I said, what happens is this. You may have the ball back in your stance, but instead of it getting the sensation that you're catching it early on the arc, you're desperately trying to catch it and hit it straight. This gets you lined up. Watch the difference now. Watch this. Now suddenly what I'm doing is I've caught it unbelievably clean, but now the problem is we start getting everything going left of target, okay? You start to add an open face to that, and you then start to hit great big slices too, okay? So the first thing here is understand the geometry of your golf swing, understand how it's created, how the ball flight's created. If you do this and you get it in your mind, it's going to super help. Let me now give you one drill that will give you a wonderful feel for the golf course. So my students love this drill because it doesn't require too much thought. It's a great visual that you can take to the golf course, can achieve exactly what we've just been talking about. So now you understand the geometry of swing. We said, look, we want the lead arm and club lining up underneath our left heel here, or underneath our left armpit, should I say. That's where you want to be, right? Now we don't want to do it, we don't want to line this up here, we want the straight shaft here, because if you do, what's going to happen, this is where the landing point will be. This is when you start hitting your fats, your thins, and your weak shots. Now, what I love about this is this. I want you to basically get the full shaft onto your bag here, okay? The full shaft. Now, why do I like this, okay? Because for those of you who are struggling for strike, here's what's happening. Your shaft is going straight here, it's lining up here, so by the time it gets to the bag, the head will hit the bag, not the shaft, and you're in this kind of flicky, weak position, which is causing you all the problems, okay? Look at this, here's the arc. We strike the ball, look, before the club, that's the ball turf, before the club finally goes, and you rotate, look, back into this bag here. You see this? So we strike the ball at this angle, club's heading out to the right, and then back around. So have this lined up with your lead heel, and then just imagine you do this indoors with cushions, just imagine smacking it this way, okay? Just showing it from this angle here. Really great visual. Line it up with your lead heel. Ball position is going to be behind. So look at this, we catch the ball, look, at an angle where the club's heading out to the right hand side. Before you take it, you bring in that rotation, and then it lines up right there, okay, at that moment of impact. This is the sensation that I want. I absolutely love it because it gives my students a real simple visual that they can take, that they can take to the golf course. Now, this is important because it's okay having those visuals, but if deep down you're still trying to hit a straight shot, you're going to resort back to leaning back to trying to hit it straight. You've got to trust that ultimately the feeling is that you're going to be heading out to the right. The club's going to strike the ball as it's tracking to the right. Then it comes around at its lowest point. This is when it strikes the ground here. But by then, the ball's already gone, okay? Now, the same principle applies with your woods, okay? A lot of times people struggle to get the woods up in the air, struggle to strike them. So what do? They try and get them more up in the air. They start to lean more and more back, and all you do is hit the bottom part of this wood, okay? Just the same principle. You won't have the ball maybe as far back as your iron, but I'm maybe gonna move this 2 balls back of my lead heel, so I've still got an angle there. And from here, I'm still heading slightly out to the right before I strike the ball. Then I come around, and this is my strongest point. So let's have a look at this in action, okay? I'll hit a 5, this is just a 5-wood, a gentle 5-wood for you. And all I'm gonna visualize here is I'm gonna imagine that the bag right in front of the ball, and I'm gonna hit that ball with the full shaft and the club face. Bang, there, that's what I'm going for. Very different to trying to line it up that club here, okay? This is what's gonna give me that beautiful power and strike. So have a look at that. So we've got my swing direction, which is basically, look, the swing circle is 0, which is pretty perfect. You'll notice on this one, look, my club path, 1.8, it means that it's still heading out to the right, but notice it wasn't as much as my iron. Why is that? Well, think about it. With an iron, we have the ball slightly further back in our stance, so we catch that ball as the path is heading, look, slightly more to the right. If we move the ball a fraction further forward with a wood, like a 5-wood, we're catching it still to the right, but not as much, which is why it's a little bit less, okay? So once you understand the geometry, you can start to apply this naturally. And using images like the bag there, really trying to put the shaft and the club on the bag at the same time, this will help a lot of this happen very, very naturally. Now, once you've got an idea of this geometry, you're going to want to understand, well, how do you generate speed with all of this? Well, do me a favor, check this video out right here, because once you've got an idea of, look, we're presenting, look, the full shaft on the bag here, not here, which is going to lead to those weak, horrible strikes. This will help you do that with a very, very short backswing actually, but generate a lot of power. So to go and check that out. And of course, look, if you enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with somebody, friends who you know is struggling with shots off the ground. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. And of course, if you're new to the channel, just press that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on future videos. But until next week, have a wonderful golfing week.